everyone hear me all right? Great. I think I met everyone. I'm Josh. Hello. I'm going to go through, and Matt wants me to throw a mix together. Couple things. One, I've actually never mixed in this room, or on this particular console. I mixed on the X32. But so Matt's going to stay up here with me just in case there's a, how you guys doing that again? But I'm going to do a rough and dirty mix on this, basically real quick. And how I'm going to start this out is how I usually start out things, is I'm going to go through and just quickly listen to everything, and I'm going to start with, they call it low cut on here, which is high pass filter, and start just getting everything in a generalized state to make sure we're all good, make sure we're getting all our inputs, and then we'll quickly go through, I'll go through some routing and kind of talk about it as I'm going along. So, yeah.
Hit play?
Sure. Okay. Let's see.
Wandering into the night, wanting a place to hide this weary soul. This bag of bones, and I try with all my might, but I just can't win the fight. I'm slowly drifting, a vagabond. Just when I ran out the road, and I didn't know, and he told me that I was not alone.
I think the master, I think the savior. Change my name forever.
Okay, so essentially all I've done right now is thrown a little bit of low cut, threw some faders up, a little bit of painting, and that's essentially all I've done from now. And that was, you know, okay. You know, for what it is. So I haven't done any DCA routing, haven't done any effects, anything like that. So from this point, basically we can just start digging down into it. And what is one thing, just from one person, whoever, one thing that immediately is sticking out, if anything at all, that you would go to first? Anything at all? Fair enough. Great.
There's no wrong answers.
There's no wrong answers. It could be, no, that's fine to stop with and go from there. So from there, really, I would start just doing some routing stuff to help set it up. All the stuff that takes a lot of time, unfortunately, all the DCAs and sends and all that. So I'm going to do that real quick, and we'll come right back. Okay, so essentially we have some basic stuff going on. Let's throw in some vocals, and then we'll get to some effects and all that fun stuff.
Want to get back to education?
Sure. See who's doing what. So right away I'm going to look for who's doing lead and who's kind of doing parts. So I have no idea.
There is singing at the ancient gates. There's a melody of ceaseless praise. Age to age, the sound is only growing stronger. There's a throne beneath the name of names. There is seated on it one who reigns, and his kingdom now is here and getting closer. So praise him like we're there in glory, here and now. He's just as holy. Jesus, he's so worthy of it all. He exists in everlasting light. So on heaven's streets there is no night. Every tear is wiped away with no sorrow. Worship you with joyful sound. Oh, sing until your voice gives out. No matter
Or who's around, release your worship. Praise him like with them.
Not much going on there.
and now he's just as holy. Jesus, he's so worthy of it all. Bring your song, he loves to hear it. Bring him every prayer so lyric. Jesus, he's so worthy of it all. The one who was, the one who is, the one who is to come. The one who was, the one who is, the one who is to come. The one who was, the one who is, the one who is to come. The one who was, the one who is, the one who is to come. Praise him like we're there in glory. Here and now he's just as holy.
Oh, okay.
Jesus, he's so worthy of it all. Bring your song, he loves to hear it. Bring him every prayer so clear it. Jesus,
Yeah.
You got a lot of low cuts on everything. Can you explain why there's a lot of low cuts?
So one thing about frequency in general that EQ, particularly the RTA on most consoles, even the higher end ones, aren't good at showing is that every frequency has a harmonic attached to it. So what that means is when you're hitting a certain frequency, like 100 hertz, it also has harmonics. It's not exactly, because it's not a sine wave, right? If you've ever heard of like a 1K, sine wave, that's only 1K. When you're dealing with live instruments and vocals, when you have that range of frequency, you're also dealing with the harmonics that are lower than that and harmonics that are higher than that. That's what gives things warmth and saturation and all sorts of stuff with it. So there's a lot of energy in the lower range that below probably, I would guess, 30 hertz or so, these subs just aren't going to necessarily reproduce, but that energy is going there, right? So they're there subtly, but they're so low in volume, like 6, 8, 10, 12 dB lower than every other frequency that's coming out, but it's still taking up energy. So I tend to, and I think Matt does this as well, tend to look at pretty much everything, and even like I don't know how well you can see, even on the kick and bass stuff like that, it's there, but it's like 30, 35, to just not let a lot of that like stragglers basically be there. And the idea is it's very subtle per channel, but when you add that per multiple channels, the compound effect takes into place. You will hear the difference over lots of channels, not necessarily a huge difference on one channel, if that makes sense at all. So very, very helpful to keep in mind compound effect of doing small things over a lot of channels. Really helps clean up your mix, you're not dealing with other stuff, and all that. I know, like I said, that was very quick and rough and dirty, but any other questions on some things that I was doing, some things I was reaching towards? This is basically, obviously, all this, the mix is never right, we'll die before we think
There's no
of it.
such thing as a perfect mix.
Yeah, so, like I said, this is just basic EQ. Like, I haven't even got into all the extra routing. I mean, it's just a single verb, no delay, just like pretty basic stuff. But, it's decent, everything there. I can hear pretty much everything there. Like I said, you can spend another 30 minutes or an hour digging into it. But when you guys are setting up mixes, it's really just listening for, the relationship of everything. One, where's your focus at? When I listen to that, obviously I want to have the feel of what's going on band-wise, but most important is the vocal, right? That's the first thing you're going to hear. If you're in here on a service and you can't understand what they're saying, there's going to be a lot of people in here not caring how much time you spend on the snare drum. If they can't understand what they're singing to be engaged in worship during the service, then I think we've missed the whole point, So really just, kind of looking at focus of the mix and where that's at, being able to understand that. But you can go further. You can go the opposite way. It's like, hey, all I hear is vocals and it doesn't feel right, and where's the feeling of everything else? So it's definitely a tension you have to try to balance off of that. Yep.
The last question, all the low end stuff
Uh-huh.
you're talking about,
Yep.
like added up, does it have the potential to cause like feedback issues? And
Oh,
stuff?
totally. Yeah, because every time you double a source, it sums by 3 dB. So when you have a lot of stuff stacked upon in frequency ranges, that is increasing the gain essentially of that frequency range, and that's summing every time. That's that compound effect of being able to go through a little bit of each thing, like what Matt was saying, what did you call it, sonic
Real estate.
Sonic real estate, yeah, great. It's really knowing how things interact with each other to make good decisions on what to do. Yep, go ahead.
Second part.
Yep.
Do you ever play you're playing the track right now, but then the mix, do you ever play it slow motion or like, what do you call it, like a half pace or something to hear all the little things you might miss in regular speed, or is that not helpful at all?
I don't find that helpful personally.
I wouldn't find it helpful. In studio mix wise, I'll go in down to the nitty gritty and actually watch the individual waveforms and make sure they're moving in sync with each other. Because one of the things that we didn't really go into and cover a lot of today is phasing.
Yeah.
With phasing, as I was talking about earlier with like the low energy, for example, a speaker can only move positive or negative. So when I have a kick drum that's kicking, and only a kick drum, it's moving positive, it's moving negative. But when I add in a guitar to go alongside of it, there's now two signals that are trying to go side by side.
Yep.
And so one of the buttons that he actually mashed really early on when he was going through was he actually reversed the polarity of one of the snare drum mics. The reason why is because the snare drum, when you hit it, that energy is pushing the microphone down on the bottom, but on the top it's pulling the microphone because the microphone is actually doing this. And so when you reverse polarity, it allows it to work. It allows the speaker to not fight itself to play the sound. So that's where, like, when I get into real nitty gritty, like that's what I'll do in studio. But live, it's listen to it. If it sounds like it's quieter than I expected, I'll smack that that polarity button. And if it gets louder, then I know that it was out of polarity and now it's in polarity. And if it or out of phase and now it's in phase. And if it makes it quieter, then I know that there's something else that might be an EQ thing that I need to look at.
Yeah,
Right.
usually a telltale sign would be the low end information, like low mids and stuff like that. That's usually where you can hear it summing, like I said, or not. When it's in phase, it's going to sum together and it's going to feel fuller. That's what he was saying. So, any other questions? Any other things you'd like me to run over that would be helpful, obviously, not hurtful? Earlier in the first session that I did? Oh, yeah. So sometimes what I do that I find helpful is tracks can vary widely, particularly in the high end. Sometimes they'll have big synths or shakers or all sorts of stuff, and they're not necessarily, obviously you're getting all these different mix engineers that are doing these tracks. So I find it helpful to put a compressor just on the high end of it and help kind of even out some of that stuff because, like I said, it varies sometimes quite widely. And obviously the easy quote unquote thing is just to pull the fader up and down, but then you're losing everything else. We don't have separate channels that we can redo the mix. We have one channel, so I find that helpful. So all I would do there is go to the compressor, into the dynamics there, and then I would turn on this key filter, and I would take it up, into the high end, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then put the threshold down, and that's going to start curbing rather that high end and helping that. So if something jumps out, it's going to catch that and just kind of soften all that high end a little bit. I find it to be really helpful that's for my mixing style. So, and if you didn't know, on other channels, I know you can't really see, but right next to that, the second one, if you press that, if you go up and down, you can change what that does. So this one would be like sort of like a parametric EQ. It's like a small shallow Q, and then we have a couple different ranges of low cut and high cut on there. So, and the reason why is this staying on the Q here and it's not moving. There's a 10, 5, 3, 2, 1, and then it moves. It's because it's giving you your different ranges of Q is what that's doing. So it allows you to get a little broader Q or a more narrow one. I believe 10 is the widest for that. Any other questions? Anything you'd like me to run over? At the end of the day, all this is information, and it's not too difficult. It's just often unfamiliar. So the more time you're able to put on with it, the quicker you can start putting things together. And I think I was telling you some of you, really, we're just problem solving all the time, right? Because we're trying to get the mix right, and oh, that's not loud enough, this is not loud enough, this is competing with this, yada yada. So being able to learn how to quickly problem solve and learning signal flow, where things are at, and the line will allow you to make quick decisions on that, and that just takes time. Unfortunately, that's your biggest enemy, is just time, just getting on the console. So, yeah. You can download, if you haven't already, the software for this at home and play around with it and look at different things and get more familiar with it at home. You can do that as well. It's possible.
If Matt sent that track, everything else.
So you can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that through the software. The software will give you access to all of the functions of the board, so you can go through and look at what the compressor options are and how to, and then from there you can come in here, and we can plug this up and actually do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it won't play music during the actually does.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I can control the board through the software. So like right now, I can actually log into this board and do all the adjustments from my computer with the software, but I have to have the board in order to play the actual track out. So Kip, one of the things, I don't know if you noticed what he did there, but this fader right here, that is his band. That is his, that's, so.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, we're still playing here, so.
Oh.
So that one's the band. The one next to it is the vocals. And the one next to that is all the effects, which is tied to the vocals. So that might be an option for us. And so over here he actually has, like that's
Keys and tracks.
That's keys and tracks. This is all of your guitars, including bass, acoustic, electric, and then this is all of his drums. So we can narrow these down, and that will give us these three on this side to do that, and then the two in the middle, the two in the middle can still be pastor and host. So we can absolutely switch those around, so that way we do have that ability to narrow down the band.
Yeah, I find when I'm mixing with that, I'm trying to be dynamic with the band, because I'm, in this position, you're just as much as part of the band as anyone on stage. And being able to change the relationship between overall band and vocals is significant. Oh, I'm saying in the way. And then my vocals, when it's more of a ballad type thing, if I'm not wanting to get in and dig, or even if I am and wanting to set up my assignables for a reverb to be a bit longer on a big ballad worship type thing, I still want to be able to ride my overall vocal effects and reverbs. Now, I don't have my drum reverb in that. My reason for it, and this is a personal thing, is I find that as part of the drum sound.
Yes.
Now, I can still go to like a drum, big drum ballad, or a worship song, whatever. I can still go down here and boost that a little bit if I want a little bit more of that, but I find that as the overall drum. So I keep that out of my effects DCA.
So on our normal setup from Sunday to Sunday, our drum reverb is part of DCA 1 with the drums.
There you go.
That's actually where it's at. So it's tied because once again, like he said, I see that as the sound of the drums.
Yep. So, but yeah, I basically live in the macro of these three of mixing, and I'm changing small, minute things. Obviously, I'm changing the lead vocalist and who's doing that. And then little parts, obviously, as the music goes on, which is a good thing to know the music going in, because this part right here, that's kind of that kind of sets the tone, if you will, of what's moving forward rhythmically. There's only a kick drum going and only a pad going, so this is giving what's driving the song forward. So knowing that means that I would push that up a little bit during this until we maybe get to the chorus and all the other stuff comes in, and I ride that back. So very important knowing music and parts. That makes all the difference in the world. Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, because you're like, oh, what am I shooting? Who's doing what? Yeah. So totally.